How should we start? Maybe this way. Christianity was born out of Judaism in the first century of the Common Era, a full 2,000 years ago. After the fateful separation between them, Christianity and Judaism have had a long and complicated history and underwent many metamorphoses. Therefore, in order to try to understand the beginnings of Christianity, we are obliged to try to leave what we may know about Christianity throughout its long history, as well as our own life context, and go back in time. In other words, the path to the proper understanding of this phenomenon goes through an attempt to restore its original context. I will therefore use time and again the appellation Jesus movement in order to distinguish those initial phases from later historical Christianity. Christianity and Judaism remain powerful forces even in our postmodern age. Many of us have some notion of the relationship between them and/or invested interests in the issue. Jews, non-Jews, Christian believers, non-believers, and all the others in between, postmodernist relativists included. Aspiring to free ourselves from our own agendas and preconceived notions can turn out a thorny road. Pessimists would say that such a feat is just plain impossible. Optimists would argue that it is certainly very difficult, but even a partial success may provide us with important insights. Optimists would also suggest that even our personal preconceptions, while being a clear limitation, can also be used to highlight some otherwise overlooked sides of the phenomenon we study. Coming back to the foundational question, what was the original context of nascent Christianity? Our discussion as a whole will be an attempt to clarify the issue, but there are standard basic elements of reconstruction which are widely accepted today. In its earlier stages, Christianity was a first-century Jewish group with followers mainly from Galilee and Jerusalem in the land of Israel on the eastern Mediterranean coast, which more or less overlaps with the nowadays state of Israel. Those people viewed their founding master, Jesus of Nazareth, again in Galilee, in northern Israel, as a charismatic leader, great teacher of the religious law, maybe even a prophet. Some of them, moreover, believed him to be God's anointed, Mashiach in Hebrew, Christos in Greek, Messiah, Christ in English, the one who had been promised by prophets of the Hebrew Bible to bring redemption to Israel and maybe even to the world at large. The Jesus movement, however, would soon go beyond the borders of the first century Common Era Israel to the Hellenistic, Greco-Roman diaspora, reaching first Jews and then even non-Jews there. The ethnic configuration of the Jesus movement thus changed, and the language they expressed their beliefs changed too, from Hebrew and Aramaic to Greek. It is to this slightly later phase that the final editing of the compositions we will be discussing, the Gospels and the Book of Acts, is dated. However, we will see that the proclamation of redemption, addressed to both Jews and non-Jews within the movement, would at least for first few decades continue to reflect and react to its initial land of Israel Jewish matrix. Both Jews and non-Jews viewed the Messianic movement they had joined as the most sublime expression of religion of Israel. In a sense, the ethnicity of our writers and editors makes little difference. What really matters is that for them, the religion of Israel was their main point of reference. It would not remain the same for a long time. A change is already in place in the 2nd century, when conversation with philosophical ideas becomes central to Christian discourse. It is still so, however, for the sources we are going to discuss. Their strategy is to provide the evidence that the beliefs of their communities represent the true understanding of the religion of Israel. Yet this terminology of the religion of Israel is misleading. The Jewish matrix early Jewish Jesus followers conversed with was a complex one. As we will see, the period was characterized by existence of various sects and movements within Judaism. In a sense, it would be more exact to speak in terms of Judaisms in plural, not Judaism in singular. The expectation of Messiah was also not a pattern of religious belief shared by all, far from it. Could we view it as a mainstream feature, a marginal one? Could we locate the Jewish groups from whom the Jesus movement inherited its messianic emphasis? All these open questions make our attention to the Jewish matrix of early Christianity even more justified. The fact that this course is offered by the Hebrew University of Jerusalem, which is a major center of Jewish studies, also contributes to the emphasis on the Jewish background. By no means does this emphasis on the Jewish matrix preclude us from checking the early Christianity's broader Greco-Roman context. In fact, in some cases, the boundaries between the two are rather blurred. Even monotheism was not restricted exclusively to the Jewish world. Suffices to mention thinkers with philosophical inclinations in the Greco-Roman world, usually viewed as representatives of the so-called pagan monotheism. However, it is important to stress that by focusing on the Jewish matrix, we remain faithful and attentive to the strategies of those writers whose outlook we are planning to investigate. These authors explicitly aspired to present the message embedded in the compositions they penned as the highest manifestation, a culmination of Jewish religious tradition. Our course will focus on the Gospels and the Book of Acts. Other parts of nascent Christian literature, for example epistles, speak the language of encouragement, admonition, and direct preaching. They are therefore inclined to explicitly present and defend their arguments. Unlike this, the Gospels and Acts present the ideas and beliefs of early Jesus followers and sometimes of Jesus himself in the form of a narrative, that is, through telling a story. It is from the story that we have to glean the underlying outlook. This common distinguishing feature, I believe, justifies collating them in this course, them meaning the Gospels and the Book of Acts. As clear from the title of our course, we will not try to recover the details of the Jesus movement's early history, but will focus instead on the sources and developments of its outlook. We should be aware of our limitations. Not all expressions of the early Christian outlook have survived, but at least we do not have to be troubled by the question of historical reliability. What will interest us are ideas and agendas. One last remark. I am not going to address the Christian outlook as a fixed set of ideas unleashed at a particular moment, but will try to outline the formation of that outlook through first decades of Christianity. That path toward formation was not an easy one, but full of confrontations, challenges, and splits, and that will always be at the center of our attention. In other words, we'll not be talking about the Christianity, but rather about a variety of responses to the challenges presented by broader Jewish heritage and inter-Christian developments. In the final account, it is not only Judaism that should be put in plural, but Christianity too, Judaism and Christianities.